Hi, I'm Michelle Welch, registered dietitian in charge of wellness for Lincoln Public Schools. Today on Simple Choices, we'll bring you access to health experts from across the Lincoln community, some stories of inspiration, and ideas that may ultimately lead your family to make simple choices for better health. Every day, we're hoping you make little bit changes that will help to make your family feel just a little bit better about where they're going. Our first guest is Dr. Bob Rauner with Partnership Healthy Lincoln. Thanks for coming today, Bob. All right. What we'll talk about today a little bit is we are talking about sugar-sweetened beverages and how that ties into what's going on with health in children.
Mm-hmm. Well, the biggest problem is just people don't underestimate how many sugar-sweetened beverages, how many calories they're getting in per day. And that's just changed over the last couple of generations. A story I like to use is my wife's aunt and uncle. Their first date, they went out and they split a Coke, which was probably an 8 or a 12 ounce
Right.
Coke, whereas typically now people will shop at the Quick Stop and get a 20 ounce or a 32 ounce or a 64 ounce, and there's just an enormous amount of calories in there that people really don't realize how much they're taking in.
What are you seeing in your medical practice, and what have you seen over these past years that has really made you focus on the sugar-sweetened beverages as a factor?
Well, it's just the increase in obesity, which then leads to diabetes, which leads to just about everything else. I haven't had people in childhood developing diabetes. I've had a couple of my patients die in their 30s from their complication of obesity, something unheard of, generations
Absolutely.
ago. And there's multiple causes, but the biggest single cause is the beverages. And people don't realize, you could burn it off with exercise, but one 20-ounce soda, you'd have to walk 3 miles.
Right.
How many people really walk an extra 3 miles a day? And if they have 2 or 3, are they walking 9 miles a day?
Right.
Nobody really does that, and so that's the biggest problem we run into.
What does research say is the amount of activity that kids are doing today?
Okay. Well, there's what they are doing and what they should be doing.
Right.
What they are doing, a lot of studies are out there around 8,000 steps a day. That's equivalent to about 3.5 to 4 miles of walking. A normal, healthy child should probably be closer around to the 12,000 steps a day, so about a 5,000 step deficit at baseline. And then the problem is then you add this deficit of exercise, and then you add in the extra 6,000 steps they should get in because of that 20-ounce pop. Now they're at a 11,000 step deficit. And so it's a combination, and that's what people have to realize. You can't just work off all the calories you're drinking.
Absolutely. So what do you see are our first steps towards getting kids back to where they should be in what drinks that they're choosing?
Okay. Well, partially it's establishing a normal baseline. And what happens is that we've been educated to always have a beverage that's not water anymore. Used to be people drank water. It's been working for thousands of years just fine, but now we have this idea. If you go to any conference, look at what's on the tables. A lot of times there's pops and teas and coffees and Gatorades and all kinds of things, and what we have to use is water should be the default beverage, and if not, probably milk for kids especially, but young women, but just about everybody. And so getting out of this idea that I always have to have a pop in my hand, and that's one of the things. Partially that's a marketing issue. One thing that doesn't get enough play, because it's not sometimes politically correct to say, is that we market a lot of stuff to our kids.
Absolutely.
Other countries don't do that. They determine that marketing directed at children is inherently deceptive and therefore shouldn't be done. In the United States, you can't do deceptive advertising, but we don't seem to look at that at all in the United States. And so we get a lot of marketing directed at our children.
Okay. Well, and what we do see day in, day out, kids are making choices within families. And so, in my practice as a dietitian too, as I've worked with families with obese children, that is something that has been a huge part, is the kids as young as age 5 are really making a lot of choices on their own. And so let's talk a little bit about what drinks should kids be having. If you think about prior to school age, what are the guidelines that you like to see in your practice?
Okay. Well, essentially, it's pretty simple. It's water and milk. Some juice is okay, but the serving size, people would be surprised that the serving size is up to 6 ounces, which is not very much. And so, so the kids, you shouldn't be buying a bunch of apple juice and things like that and bringing it home. Mostly what should be is water and milk. When they're young, they basically are relegated to drinking what's put in front of them. So parents have almost 100% control over that.
Right.
But as they get old enough to open that refrigerator door, that's where you really start lining things up for them. You can still give them a choice, but make sure the choices that are there are not the bad choices. And so literally just quit putting the pop in the fridge or the Capri Suns or the things that they might drink other than milk and water.
Okay. So for children, really through their school years, isn't it a serving? Do you agree that our guideline as dietitians is that we like to see at least 3 8-ounce servings of milk every day? So equivalent of having milk with their meals.
Yeah, for most people that's correct. They need, basically because of the calcium, and there's also protein that growing kids need.
Right.
And so milk is kind of the default beverage. It's available mostly tastes good.
Yeah.
There's some populations it doesn't work for. Most people don't realize that in the Southeast Asian and African community, a lot of them are lactose intolerant, so obviously milk's not the right choice for them. There are other choices of lactose-free ways of getting calcium.
Absolutely.
Other things is you can substitute. If you're not a milk drinker, well, there's yogurt. There's other things that have calcium as well. So.
Absolutely. And one thing I should mention is I know that within our school system here in Lincoln, they have 7 different types of milk alternatives that they offer. So if you have a child that struggles a little bit to have milk, that gives them an alternative that they can really choose that way.
Yeah.
So.
And, most people probably know that there's whole milk, there's 2%, 1% skim, and of course then there's the flavored milk. So you've got all these different choices. For the most part, we encourage people to stay away from whole milk. Even the young ages, we're starting to push that back. Used to they say kids up to 2 should have whole milk. Now they're even pushing that back because excess calories is just not something we need. And so there's not that much benefit to adding whole milk. We usually encourage people to really choose probably 1% or skim.
Okay.
There's a little bit of a change. If you grew up on whole milk, it is hard to switch, but if you change gradually, go to 2%, and then mix, and then go to 1%, and then go stepwise, it's a little easier.
Absolutely.
Probably the most controversy right now is around flavored milks, chocolate, strawberry, that kind of stuff, because people say, well, if I don't give it that way, they won't drink it at all. And that's one of those balancing act things.
Now, one thing that we really encourage families to do is to have a discussion within their family about how often that they would really like to see the kids choose flavored milk. And then if they're drinking flavored milk at school, because that's a way to get them to drink it more there, maybe they don't need to have it at home as much.
Yeah. I look at it should be a treat. I really like the taste of chocolate milk, and so do my kids too, and they like it with Ovaltine and whatever, but that shouldn't be the default. Not every serving, because every time that's another added 50, 60, whatever calories each time. Well, that's that much more you have to walk off. And so it should be a treat, not a default.
Okay. I think that's generally a good tip that way. So talk to me a little bit more about, when you are thinking about the bigger picture of kids and weight, what are the big factors that you'd like to see make small, simple choices happen for families?
Okay. Well, beyond the beverages, picking other things that are processed. It's the food that's processed is the big issue. Most of us, when we decide we're full, your body decides that based on volume of stuff in your stomach. And when you have processed food, there's more calories per unit as opposed to, say, carrots. Not a lot of calories, but a lot of bulk.
Right. There's a self-limiting factor in carrots.
Yeah. And so the things that have really changed things, one, your body doesn't really account for liquid calories at all. It thinks it's just water, but yet there's all this extra sugar in it, so it doesn't account for that. Then we have these processed foods that are packaged and wrapped and things like that. And so to pick foods that are just the way they came out of the ground, the way they were supposed to be, the way your great-grandmother would recognize them as food. And then finding ways to make that healthy and attractive to kids. And of course, there's a lot of great fruits out there. An example I use is some people default to the red delicious apple, which I think is the least delicious apple. Get kids tasting stuff. Try a Fuji or a Honeycrisp or a Gala. Sometimes just making it easier to grab makes a huge difference. If you get the package of grapes and don't wash it, it sits there for a week. But if you wash it, put it in the Tupperware, the kids just snarf it down in 10 minutes sometimes.
It goes, yeah. Well, and one point that you're bringing up that I think really ties in well is the fact when we talk about drinks and juices, one thing that I found in my practice, in most families that came in that were struggling with weight really always said, the first path was really where we found extra calories were really in drinks. And you could drink the juice of 6 oranges, but you're not most likely to eat 6 oranges.
No.
And so eating foods instead of choosing to drink their juice is really a way to be able to help people find a healthy balance with those extras that way. So.
And you get more benefits. You get the fiber. You get more vitamins out of the stuff the way it came, rather as opposed to processed and squished.
Right. So going back to basics. So really, in a lot of ways, what you're saying is making simple choices in what you're choosing, things that don't have a bunch of decoration on them, and making food choices that haven't really been modified that much are really simple choices that families could make. All right. Well, thank you for coming. We appreciate having you to be able to share a little bit of your insight on what's going on in the world of beverages and how physicians look at it for families.
Okay, thanks. It's been good being here. If the audience wants to learn more, we have a website. It's www.healthylincoln.org. And that talks about some of the things we've covered, gives us some data on what's happening in the schools, things like that.
All right, so the next step. All right. Yep. We will be right back. Thank you.
Hi, my name's Sharon Baker and I'm the school nurse here at Lincoln Public Schools. I understand that you have some concerns about diabetes today and possibly your student having diabetes. There are many things that we can do to assist your student here at school. Some things that we'd like to have from you would be some communication and a release of information to talk with the physician. We also would want to set up an individualized health care plan for your student. Let's just talk a little bit about diabetes. There's two different types of diabetes. Type 1 diabetes is what we would really typically think about as something that happens when you're a child. And it usually means that you don't produce enough insulin, and your pancreas, for whatever reason, it could be genetic, it could be virally related. There are various different autoimmune diseases that can also attack the pancreas, but for some reason your pancreas is not secreting enough insulin. So what we need to do to get your body to work correctly is to get that insulin on board. So students who are insulin dependent typically take shots at school, and we can accommodate for that at school and provide snacks when needed if they would have low blood sugar, and provide insulin for them if they would have high blood sugar. Now there's another type of diabetes, also type 2 diabetics, and we are seeing more and more of this in children. It's typically managed through diet and exercise, and also we can have some medications that you're given, but those are more in the pill form. So we'll need to find out first which type of diabetes your student has. As a school nurse, in order to assist your student at school, we'll need to collaborate not only with you and with your student, but also with your physician. So we'll need to get a release of information so that we can talk with them. I have a special tool that we can give to you here at school that's a checklist that tells us where your student's at as far as cognitively and developmentally. How are they able to perform the skills that they need to do, for instance, to give insulin or to count carbohydrates, which is something that we would need to do with a type 1 diabetic. And based on this tool, we'll put together an individualized health care plan for your student to meet their needs. And then we'll share that information with staff here at school to make sure that they're safe, so that they know what to watch for in the event that they would have high blood sugar. They know what symptoms your student would have. Or if they would have low blood sugar, which are typically what we have with insulin-dependent diabetics. We have a dietitian at the district level that is very helpful. We also have menus that you can select online, and that we could also provide for you here in the health office that can help you to count your carbohydrates, which is an important part of learning for students with diabetes. They'll need to learn how to count their carbohydrates, and we have lots of books, and we'll assist them one-on-one also. We have lots of other students in the district that have diabetes. Up to 120 students right at any given moment in Lincoln Public Schools have been diagnosed with diabetes, and it's actually a growing concern. Well, it'll be important for you to stay into your same routine that you have at home, and to as closely resemble that as possible. Just because your student has diabetes doesn't mean that they're not going to participate in everything that they did before. It's important that they stay active. It's just we have one more thing we need to do now. So you'll need to be keeping track of your blood sugars both at home and at school, and we can help you to keep a log of those so that we can share those with your practitioner. And it'll be important that you stick to the diet that the practitioner wants you to, and you'll need to start to learn how to count carbohydrates, and we'd be more than happy to help you with that as well here at school. If you have any questions, please feel free to contact your school nurse. Each school has a school nurse assigned to it in Lincoln Public Schools, and we're more than happy to help.
Today on Simple Choices, we're shining the spotlight on the impact of drinks on our health and the health of our families. As a registered dietitian, I know that around 20% of our calories come from our drinks. In working with adults and children in my practice that are fighting weight, what I've found is that drinks are a major contributor to weight battles for almost all of my clients. Drinks are also one of the best and easiest places to help people see an improvement in their health, as they're often acceptable substitutes that work well for people looking to decrease calories. For all of us as busy people, fitting in extra time for physical activity is a challenge. When you start picturing drinks as being extra miles of walking you need to fit into the day, it can help you more quickly to think about making adjustments in what you're choosing to drink. You'll see from this small group of examples that making little adjustments in our drink choices in what we offer to our family can have a major impact on the amount of extra calories received each day. Let's take a look at a few examples and see where we can make a big difference in our health. Keep in mind, most bottlers make similar products, so it's time to start being acquainted with the label on whatever brand of drinks you choose. What I, both as a mom and dietitian, know is that the size of cups, even with spill-proof lids for toddlers, have grown to 12 and even 16 ounces. How can parents not be confused about the size of drink they should be giving their kids? Let's start by looking at the drinks started to be offered at younger ages. From the time a child starts drinking milk at about 1 year of age, they need about 24 ounces or 3 8-ounce cups each day, with whole milk recommended most of the time for children up to the age of 2 for brain cell development. You may see this milk labeled as vitamin D milk or think of it as milk with a red cap. After reaching age 2, it's recommended that children convert to 1% or skim milk in most cases. Children need 24 ounces of milk per day, skim or 1%, recommended after age 2. Beyond milk, they should be having between 0 to 4 ounces of juice, with an increase to maybe 0 to 6 ounces of juice when they reach school age. Otherwise, water should be the drink of choice. Let's look at some actual choices I brought along with me today. If you start by looking at the small juice box, it has equivalent of 4 sugar cubes in it. So when you think about handing this to your child, basically you're handing them 4 sugar cubes worth of naturally occurring sugar. The problem is, most of us use juice boxes much bigger than that with our kids, and if we handed them a small one like this, they would think, what is going on? They're most used to seeing are these larger vending machine sized type of juices, and there are lots of different brands of these, but just in this example, this one, naturally occurring sugar, mind you, and with some nutrients present, but it has up to 15 cubes of extra sugar that you're adding to a child's diet if you could instead be giving them water as a drink in between meals. It also is equal to 2.4 miles of walking, so it makes a big difference. So now let's talk a little bit about what's happening if you say you're choosing items that are maybe not 100% juice. These are examples of items that are drinks that are marketed to toddlers, but they're really typically not containing any juice at all. Unfortunately, they do contain extra added sugar in some cases. When you look at the difference between these two drinks, though, they're marketed very similarly, but what you'll see is one has a tremendous amount more sugar than the other. One has about 8 sugar cubes, where the other one has about 3. Once again, brands will vary, and even within the same brand, you'll see differences between the different flavors. And so it's always worth looking at that label before you let your kids talk you into choosing one of these drinks. Once again, these offer no nutritional value because they aren't coming from a place with nutrients. They're coming from a place of additives. So kind of keep that in mind. If you use sports drinks with your kids, this is a big market area for kids, especially when families are trying to keep their kids healthy. Sport drinks have been really communicated to kids as a drink of choice. And really the best sport drink for most kids is water. But let's show you the difference between the sports drinks in just these 3 examples, although there are really literally hundreds on the market. The difference between a regular Gatorade, it has equal to a 2-mile walk and 13 sugar cubes in it, compared to G2, which they're marketed in the same case and have the same price. Only has 4 sugar cubes and 75 calories for the entire bottle. There are versions of these sports drinks that you can get that have 0 calories. So if your kids are really committed to utilizing a sport drink, going to something that has a 0 calories to it can help. One thing to keep in mind, though, especially for us as adults, if you have a tendency to have high blood pressure issues, these drinks add back in sodium. And this bottle of sports drink, as well as most of these, has right around 400 milligrams of sodium. So if you have a tendency to have concerns about high blood pressure, you might want to think twice between choosing these sports drinks. The other item I wanted to point out that is typically kind of among these sports drinks are the drinks that are what they label as waters. And the trick is, there are some tricky pieces to that label that no one really recognizes. This example is one where they market it as 0 calories, but what they're utilizing is a sneaky labeling law loop. This is an example of a product where they market themselves and you'll see 0 calories on this label. The trick is, they say the serving is only 8 ounces, and it really has 2.5 servings in it. There is a labeling loophole that shows if anything has 24 calories or less per serving, they can call it 0 calories by rounding down through the labeling loophole. Even though you're buying this water thinking you're getting 0 calories, if you drink the whole bottle, you're actually getting 60. that can lead you to need to have almost an extra mile worth of walking in your day when you're thinking you're getting a 0-calorie product. Very tricky. One thing that you would really like to think about with this is really pay attention to if it lists calories in other areas, something such as carbohydrates. If you look at the carbohydrates on your label, if there are any listed, every gram of carbohydrate is 4 calories. So it's a great thing to know as a consumer that might not really have the idea by looking at the front label. The back label is always really going to tell you the bigger story. Once again, water is our ultimate sports drink. And if you have someone that is working out more than 60 minutes with a really high intensity workout, they may choose to use some version of sports drink, but for most of us at the intensity we work out, water is our best choice. Sometimes people think, well gosh, I don't use sports drinks or juices, but I occasionally like to have some tea. The trick that I find with teas is that they are a lot of times in coolers at low levels. And you may be pulling these out of a cooler at ankle height, and the branding on them and the labeling is so similar that you won't really necessarily realize before it's too late that you accidentally got the wrong one. The difference between a regular and a diet Snapple, 10 calories and a 1.6 mile walk. They look almost exactly the same, and they both taste sweet. So you may not notice until you've reached the bottom of the bottle and are saying, oh no. One also big surprise that is a new trend that I'm finding within diet soft drinks is some diet soft drinks also do not have 0 calories. This is just a perfect example where if you look at the label, actually one of the top ingredients is a sweetener that is a regular calorie sweetener. Even though it's only 25 calories, if you buy a 12-pack and drink the whole 12-pack, it's going to take you 3 miles of walking to burn off those diet sodas. So really always be paid attention to the labels, even with the diet soft drinks. There are many other examples beyond this one example where you're starting to see the creep of things that are labeled as lower calorie really not being calorie free, which is what we've kind of come to expect. In just comparing these as 2 examples, and once again, there are many different brands, if you look at the difference between having a regular versus a diet soft drink, you're looking at the difference in this case of a 2.5 mile walk. I don't know about you, but most kids that I know aren't walking home an extra 2.5 miles at the end of their school day. So if they, it's just the simple difference of if they stop by at a quick place and pick up a drink such as this, if they're choosing regular versus a calorie-free version, that can make a huge difference. Now, what I really find is most people that I know go straight to the fountain because typically they make those the least expensive for us. So what really happens is when you look at the fountain, very rarely do you ever see anything that's smaller than 32 ounces. And with that being the case, we really have to note that if we don't have a lot of ice added, we can end up with a wallop of calories. In this example, in this 32 ounce, which is a really small beverage for most fountains these days, if you're buying some of the higher calorie soft drinks, sweetened teas and lemonades, as well as the sports drinks, you can end up with a 4.4 mile walk or 32 sugar cubes in just this 32 ounce drink. When we move from a 32 ounce to a 44 ounce, you're at a 6 mile walk. Now, I don't know when the last time was that you took a 6 mile walk in addition to your regular exercise, but you can see why we're having struggles from the obesity epidemic because of what's happening in our cups. It's not really about what's happening at the table a lot of times, it's more about the drinks. Last but not least, if you look at my 64 ounce cup, if you don't get a lot of ice, it makes a big difference, and you can have 8.8 miles of walking in one cup if you're getting a regular soft drink, sweetened tea, lemonade, or sport drink. So really paying attention to what you're doing can make a huge difference in what's happening for your health and for your health of your children, because a lot of these sneak into all of our family events when you're running to and fro. One tip that I can give you when we talk about fountain drinks do give you an opportunity to be able to make a little bit of difference, and that is you can choose to really load up on the ice. If you load up on the ice and you have people that are regular soft drink users, that is a way to be able to start trimming back the calories. They can also do a mixer where they do half diet, half regular. That can make a huge difference for people. Then they can just slowly work their way down to the all calorie free beverage choice. But once again, best of all, if we can stick to that water, we're always in great shape. I would be remiss if I didn't mention Mountain Dew and those types of drinks like Mellow Yellow. All those different bottlers have those drinks that the kids really look to, specifically because they do have a little bit more caffeine. And kids think, gosh, I need that extra buzz to get me through the day. The trick is kids aren't realizing when they're picking up a 20 ounce bottle of that they are getting almost a 3-mile walk. And so I don't know about you, but if you don't have an extra time for a 3-mile walk, or your students not really walking those extra miles, it can really make a big difference, especially if your child is kind of at that tricky age where they start to have a little bit of extra weight that they're carrying and they're very concerned about that. Just by getting them switched over from a regular soft drink to a diet can help to be able to save a substantial amount of calories. Best case scenario, the more we can utilize the milk at the meals, keep our juice limited to those smaller cups, and use water, whether from our tap or if we buy it and do things from convenience, it can make a big difference in their health for a long time to come. And I can tell you from working with my clients, I've had people lose upwards of 30 pounds just from taking that regular pop out of their regular rotation. If you'd like to learn more information about what you've seen today, or you'd like to learn more about what's going on in the Lincoln community related to health, go to healthylincoln.org or visit our Lincoln Public Schools website at lps.org/wellness. We'll be right back.
Welcome to Dawes!
This program is called BodyWorks, and it was developed by the Office of Women's Health. We have now 7 families participating in the program here at Dawes Middle School, and it's been very fun teaching the families about nutrition, basics of nutrition, and we've also done a little physical activity. We'll get a little bit more in detail with serving sizes, healthy cooking, recipes, learning to grocery shop. And then the physical education teacher will come and talk a little bit more about physical activity, the types of physical activity and why that's important. It used to only be for girls, and so now we've included materials for boys as well.
I'm learning that I need to exercise at least 60 minutes a day.
It's to teach you how to live healthier, how to eat healthier, shop healthier, cook healthier, and get more active.
We do fitness and we walk and we try to eat right.
The program is set up to include the parents and the children, the teens, 9 to 12, and have them all participate in an 8-week session. The ultimate goal of the BodyWorks program is to encourage families to be healthier. It's not a weight loss program. It's a nutrition and physical activity education program. I want you to put the amount of servings that you should have. Just pick one person in your family.
This says 1 ounce, so that's one of our ounces. What does that say on it, bub?
1 cup.
I'm realizing how much portions can affect your weight.
I was eating fast food at least twice a week, and now I haven't had it in a week or so. And so
That's a record for us to go a whole week without fast food.
There's a lot of nutrition myths out there to kind of debunk a lot of that and give them factual information. We use a lot of information from myplate.gov. She had a good question. Does Miracle Whip count as part of the dairy group? And it's actually just a fat, considered just a fat. If we can get teens interested and aware of their nutritional choices and of their physical activity habits now, it can become more a culture of the family and a part of a healthy lifestyle.
It's challenging us all because we know that she learns from us, and so if we set a good example, then she's soon to follow what we do. So it's good for the whole family.
It's more important to do it in this age group, 11, 12, 10, than when you're older, because this is where it's most effective.
We've had a really great response here at Dawes, and that's in large part to the principal and to the school nurse who have called families and invited them in personally to come to the program.
I've been trying to eat healthier, and last week my family won a smoothie blender, and I've been using that a lot instead of drinking lots of pop and juices.
I've changed some of my eating habits, just the way I live life. I feel happy, a little bit more active than I used to be.
I feel less depressed, and I'm losing weight.
When my mom told me that I was gonna come here, I didn't really want to come, but then I came anyway, and I liked it.
Good, I'm glad.
I've lost a little weight, and so I feel a lot lighter and faster when I run.
You could exercise to get a good day started.
Just get active and have a little bit fun and exercise.
I feel better, like more, like I can do a lot more stuff, more energized.
Thanks for joining us today here on Simple Choices. We're glad to have you along with us. Please join us next time and think about the simple choices you can make each day to make your family just that little bit healthier. Thank you.